All right, we got Ricky in the wings. Let's bring him in here. Your 3-time back-to-back tour champion winner, Ricky Wysocki, joins Tour Life. Ricky, what's up, man?
How's it going, guys? Thanks
Dude,
for
we're
having me.
chilling.
I'm glad to join you guys.
All right, first, guys, what is with this tournament? What makes this tournament like you feel like you just like come alive this tournament and do things that are just unimaginable? What is it about the Tour Championship that just gets you going?
I don't know. I think for me, it's something where you want to go into the off season with a positive thought, and it's like you get to think about that last tournament for the whole season or the whole off season. And so I think that for me, that's gives me that little extra motivation to really want to go out there and just give it your all.
All right, Yuli had some words leading into the tournament. He said that Nevin is more difficult than Northwoods Black. So I want to hear if he still thinks that, and I also want to hear from you what with all the changes that they did at the course this year, where do you have it as far as like course difficulty with the courses we played on tour?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at very least it's right there neck and neck, but I would say it probably is harder. It's just I think the gaps and everything out there are trickier. I think there's a lot more big numbers on like every hole. Nevin, you could pick maybe like half the course where you get a big number. Nevin, you could pretty much get a big number on almost any hole, and especially with the fact that they cleaned up Northwoods, they trimmed I'd say let's say 10 feet on the left and right side of a lot of the fairways. They trimmed a lot of the trees, so it made it a lot easier to scramble when you're out of position than it used to. I think what Kyle had the record for a while at like 7 under. And, I think now once we go there year after year, you're going to see people shooting 8, 10 under. And I think whereas at Nevin, me and Calvin shot a 9, I shot a 10. But those are just great rounds. And those are just rounds where you're smooth sailing and that you can't expect to do that every time out there at Nevin.
Well, let's talk about that 10 under round. Where do you put that? I mean, you went 10 under, and then also I want to talk a little bit about the final day, 6 out of 7 circle 2 putting. You almost were perfect. You started your day making what I would call like hey, I'm going to throw one up there and see if it gets close. You might be thinking other than that might be different than what you're thinking. But I mean, you were draining putt after putt after putt. So talk to me about that 10 under round first, and just where does that stack up with your rounds throughout this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's right there with my 15 under at the Preserve, I would say, just because of the course difficulty difference between the Preserve and Nevin. I think it's very comparable as far as how it felt and how, obviously the ratings are kind of whack because it's pretty obvious that 10 under should, based on the ratings in the past. And I think something people don't mention is I think ratings used to be a lot more accurate than they are now because of the fact that there's so many good players. And when that's the case, it actually makes the rating system worse. Because everybody's just so compact and it just throws off the equation or something. I don't know what it is, but it just kind of seems like that.
We don't have those bad players anymore that make courses look harder than they actually are.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's almost impossible now to shoot some of the round ratings that people were shooting, a few years ago when we had 900, 950 rated guys that were shooting, 20 over par and stuff. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
You basically come out and say that if you shoot the hot round of that round, let's just say a random DGPT event, that round should be rated 1070, 1080 almost automatically, just because of the skill set. Whereas you couldn't say that 10 years ago. If the top couple players played bad, it's not going to be a 1080. But nowadays, it's almost guaranteed that you have to shoot that good to get a rating like that.
Well, not only that, but these days, like, you have to shoot so much better, and they're lower. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, in order to get the hot round of I think back in the day, I would average like a hot round a tournament or something like that. And nowadays, I average 0 hot rounds a year. You know what I mean? And so, like, in order to get a hot round at a tournament, you're going to have to shoot between 12 and 13 every single round in order to get the hot round, because like you said, Ricky, the competition is so tight that somebody's doing it. There's somebody who's going to do it.
Are you guys still judging your rounds off the rating? Like when you finish your rounds, are you guys going to PDGA and looking at what that rated?
I mean, I think I stopped doing that, I would say 8-10 years ago. I mean, sometimes you'll be like, oh, you shot a good round and it's cool to be like, all right, that's kind of cool. But I'm not like, oh, sweet, what did I shoot? What was my rating? And I think partly it's because it's kind of off now. And I think that it just kind of lost its, it used to be really cool. It did. And I think it was a cool way to judge. But now you have hot rounds and you can do interviews and explaining around how it played out. And so that's more so, instead of, back in the day, it was like, all right, you shot a 1080. And that's pretty much all they had with it. They didn't have the post-round interviews to explain how did it feel, all this different stuff that you have now. And so I think that takes away from the ratings and how much people really value it.
Going back to like the comparisons of the two courses, Northwoods Black and Nevin, I think one of the biggest differences is that Nevin has a lot of what feels like a bonus birdie, to where Northwood Black, you can play like decent shots and kind of scramble your way to a birdie on almost every hole out there, to where at Nevin, like, you have to throw pure shots in order to get the birdies. And it's usually like a 400-foot, like, pure shot, to where Nevin, you can get off, scramble a sidearm, and then throw like a 380 shot in, to where, like every hole at beside, what is it, like hole 1, hole 2 to start Nevin, not so much, but even hole 3. I mean, that used to be a par 5. It's a par 4 now. That's like a bonus birdie ish. And then you go to the par 3s that are like 400-foot dead straight. The one that's 400-foot up the hill. Then you go to 17 and 18. It's like there's like 7 holes out there. When you get a birdie, it's like you might be one of 5 people, 6 people in the tournament to get it.
Yeah, I think that they're both very comparable, and like you said, that the bonus birdies are definitely there, and you're gaining strokes, which nowadays on tour, you birdie holes, you're just not losing strokes. You may not necessarily gain strokes on some of the holes, and depending on how hard it is. But in general, if you break down a course, there's going to be a huge chunk of players that birdie that same hole you did. So you got to string together birdies. Whereas at Nevin, it's the type of round where, ideally you'd want to go birdie, par, birdie, par, and string them like that, as opposed to preserve, where can I get 8 in a row and give myself a chance to have the hot round? And so I think that's kind of the name of the game out there.
Something that was talked about a lot this tournament was the actual format, right? They got rid of the match play this year. So all year, we're either playing 3-round tournaments or 4-round stroke play tournaments. And then we get to the Tour Championship, and it's a completely different format. What were your thoughts on the format?
I think they did better with doing it 2 rounds. I always did think it was weird to play all season and then just have 1 round to determine the Tour champion. So I think the fact that it's 2 rounds.
You're saying basically like the way that the buys and stuff worked, you're making it to like the top guys could just really only just have to play 1 round, is what you're saying last year?
Yeah, exactly. Because the way you get a buy, I guess it's not automatic last year. I guess I'm just talking about more so this year. But I like that. Compared to just 1 round. I think that's, I'm all for a new format, but I think that just playing 1 round, like you said, with the fact that we're playing 3 and 4 rounds all year, and then you just do a 1-round tournament, it just feels kind of weird.
Did you like the reset after 2?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think that, that gives, you're not guaranteed to make the finals as a top seed. Most of us did. I think the only person that didn't was Simon. So I think most people made the finals, and so that was your advantage. It's just that much easier. You still have to earn it. You still have to go out there and play, but it's not a guarantee. It's not like a buy. So I think that it gives the people that maybe didn't, that just squeaked in, it still gives them an outside chance if they play hot. like what Adam did. But you have to play really well because obviously, as we're talking about, if I'm getting 4 strokes and dude in 15th place is getting none, like that's a lot to come up and make up.
What about this, Ricky? I was talking to Brody earlier about this, and one of the big problems I had with the format, which you didn't have to deal with, was I'm like halfway through my round and there's nothing to play for. Like I'm getting the same amount as the next person. And that to me is a travesty because then you have James Proctor, who has a 30-footer on the last hole, who absolutely destroyed me in the tournament. He misses it and we get the same amount of money. Like, I don't think that's fair. Like, that guy deserves a lot more money than I did. We don't deserve the same thing. And then half the field with, 9 holes, or some people didn't even show up, or one person didn't even show up because he was so out of it, maybe, or he was hurt. Hopefully he was hurt. But I don't know. I felt like that was strange. You shouldn't have players like have nothing to play for towards the end of the round.
For sure. I think I'm an advocate for the point system. It gives commentators and spectators something to, kind of drama towards the middle and end of the year. Like who's going to win the points title? You have a payout for that. And, you can do, in addition, you can do a separate tournament like the Pro Tour Finals. But I think there should be a lot more emphasis on those points. I think because obviously, as we know, it's hard to play well at a high level consistently week in and week out. And I think that eventually down the road, I'd love to see a big payout that adds a whole extra storyline to all these events.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard that before, that there should just, like Calvin should have just won a certain amount of money. You should have won a certain amount of money. And somebody like Proctor, who, he beat me at every single tournament and beat me at the Pro Tour Championships, and we made the same amount. Like, I feel like that's just not fair for how well he played the whole season compared to how well I played the whole season.
For sure. And I think it's something we're going to have to kind of, because I get it. It's hard to get the money for the Pro Tour Finals and then also give out a payout for the points title. And so I guess we're just going to kind of have to find a happy medium between the two.
Yeah. And Jeff Spring mentioned that this format will most likely come back next year, but with some extra tweaks. So I don't know what tweaks that means. Something that I personally would like to see from watching it, I wasn't a big fan of the reset. I wasn't a big fan of the reset. I wasn't a big fan of the cut. And also I would like to see scores be a little bit more drastic. So maybe have the leader at 8 and then it goes 6, 4, or 6, 5, 4, however they want to do it. A little bit bigger jump between the bottom guys and the top guys, and then no cut, and then 4 rounds, no reset. So then you could have someone, that plays out of their mind, that's even par, that jumps up, and then that also usually takes away your issue of you guys are just like, I'm out of it. There's nothing for me to play for, because you would still have in that situation 2 more rounds to potentially move up.
Sure.
I think the other reason for that, Rick, is like there's not a lot of people out there. That final day, there's no one out there playing.
Yeah, I think for your first part of what you were talking about is, I think that the first 2 days it really turned into like, hey, who's going to squeak into that 12th spot? And that was the storyline. Nobody really cared who was winning the tournament because it's a reset. It's just you either get in or you don't. And so the lead card, most of us were just already in. So we're just kind of cruising through the course, no pressure, no situational awareness. We're just throwing shots, having fun. And so there was not that much entertainment value if you're a spectator or watching on DGN. It was more so, hey, who's squeaking in that 12th place spot? And that was
think
really
they showed you guys.
Right. And it makes sense. So I think that's like what you said, every shot matters if what you're saying, if you're not having a cut and you play all 4 rounds with those strokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was weird
ahead,
doing like the commentary on the lead card, because it was like, we're having to make it a lot about the course and what's going to happen, and doing a lot of score check-ins rather than like the storylines. Like you said, it had nothing to do with the top 4 because you guys are obviously getting in. And so that was like kind of a difficult thing on the commentary.
And then the second thing, what you were saying is, sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Oh, I was saying I would the things I was saying is I would like to see like more scoring separation for the top leaders, no cut, no reset. Those are like the three things I would love to kind of potentially see.
Yeah, I think that would like solve a lot of the problems. Like for you, Yuli, what you're talking about, it would create. Oh, and then the spectators. I think that a lot of it
spectators,
was the USDGC. I think that a lot of people actually flew in, had an amazing week at USDGC, and then just flew out. So there wasn't as many people able to take off work or whatever it is. So I think that kind of, made a lot of people not have to choose between weeks, and a lot of people chose USDGC. And I also think I heard that there was some VIP passes that were like $800, super expensive, especially for disc golf in the stage that we're at.
Holy cow.
We're still just barely adjusting to, paying to go to watch the tournament. And it's totally normal for a sports event, but for disc golf, you still got to look at it as like, hey, yeah, we're still getting to that point where it's part of the culture. And so I think those two things have played a big part.
It's such a hard thing to think about with like what the decision making that the Pro Tour and Disc Golf Network and all that stuff has to do, because in my head when I'm watching coverage, I think it would make more sense for them to do like don't make it free, because I think when you make an event free, that gives people a different kind of concept. Don't make it free, but like $10 tickets to get on the grounds and have hundreds, thousands of people maybe show up. To me, I think that's going to probably be better for disc golf in the long run than these $800, $500 VIP tickets. And then you get crowds where it's like 200, 300 people watching, right?
I mean,
like
you still have $20 tickets. Like, you still have those. It's just an option for the VIP to get like the better spots. And I do feel like there is a spot for VIP stuff if you have the budget for that. Like, you can still buy a $20 ticket to get on the grounds. I'm pretty sure per day it's like $25 or something, which is totally reasonable. I feel like
25 might be a little high.
You're right, and that's So I was kind of throwing that out there. It wasn't like that was the only ticket option.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, go ahead, you go.
No, I was kind of going to go jump into just Ricky and some career things, but if you have something else on the topic, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, I was going to talk about the money. And if you saw, me and Yuli were talking a little bit before you came on, he saw people like talking about what they were going to do on 18 because of the situation with placement and money. Do you think that is an impact at this tournament, that you see players crack under pressure a little bit more because now you're throwing in one stroke can cost you not just $100. We're talking now $10,000, right? We're talking like serious money for a lot of people. Do you think that comes into play with this tournament?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just adds just like the pressure of a title. People know that, hey, if I win this title, it comes along with, I get bonuses, I get all this different stuff. So as a player, you realize all those things that come along with winning a tournament. And so now the payout itself is definitely something that people are thinking about, and it's, adds that extra pressure. It's already, all the best players are there on such a challenging course that everybody's, playing at a high level. And so if you're not, you're getting lapped, and you're getting, people are going to jump you. Calvin jumped all the way to third, and he was on, he was pretty far back from the podium finish. And so he made himself a bunch of extra money by playing solid that last round.
Yeah.
And so, whereas some people, struggled a little bit, and, it's hard to get that motivation, but when you got that money on the line, it's a whole different ball game, and I think that's what, Calvin is so good at, just, grinding out a great finish, and he's done that all year.
Yeah, I can't wait for purses to continue to go up and up, because I think it's just going to add the pressure. I don't think it's going to matter too much to the actual like spectator of like, oh, they're playing for this and this. I just think the actual drama of the moment is going to be that much bigger for players, and you're going to see a lot more of these like kind of swings and stuff, if you will.
Yeah, and it's going to be like interesting to see how players develop with that extra pressure of the money, because right now, like, $20,000 is life changing to just a regular guy like number 40 on tour or something. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the grand scheme of things, this is a new thing that people have to deal with. Like, $40,000 was my best year that I ever played, a whole season wrapped up in one tournament. And so it's a thing that, you know, even I haven't had to experience yet. Like, I haven't had a putt that was worth over like 10 grand in my entire life. So I don't know what that feels like. And as these players develop, like Gann, and even you, Ricky, you know, you've now had 2 times where you've made the most money that anybody has ever made. And it's just a little bit different. And you have to learn how to, like, just like learning how to win, you have to learn what that pressure feels like. It's not something that's just going to come naturally.
No, for sure. And it's definitely something that it's a skill set. It's you know, you got to learn how to master that skill set of how do I handle the pressure? What do I do well? What is my weakness? What are my tendencies? And so those are all things that you have to go back and say, hey, where have I failed in the past? And how do I change that? How do I, like you said, how do I practice to the point where I'm doing my same movements with my form under pressure as I am the first round? And I think you see that a lot of times is someone can pop off and shoot a 12, 13 under, but then by the 3rd or 4th round of the tournament, those pressure nerves, you know, they may come in and turn in a 2, 3 under simply because their body's not feeling like it did in round 1 with no pressure.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, there is the point where as a competitor, you're trying to win. So I don't necessarily think that all of a sudden with all this money, all of a sudden there's going to be that extra pressure. If you're trying to win and you're at the top and you're in the hunt, there's always those nerves and pressure. And so, like I said, even back when we were playing, if you're trying to win a tournament, you were feeling those pressure and nerves if you're trying to clutch up down the stretch and win. So I think that, you know, the titles are, you know, the fact that you can win that title and have that to add to your, you know, legacy as a player, that is something that's, I don't think it's going to be like exponentially more, but there is that, you know, 20% more extra pressure because of that payout.
We probably won't see it from the top guys, right? Yeah. We probably won't see it that much from you, Calvin, those type of players, Isaac. This is more of like the 20 to 40 range, right? Those guys, $20,000, $30,000 putt, like they're going to have thoughts on like, man, that could go a whole lot of way. Do I risk it? Right? There's actually risk involved now of like trying to win versus like securing second place or whatever. And we saw it with Bradley Williams earlier at the silver event. He talked about it at North Cove about how he was fine with taking second and not risking like falling super far down the leaderboard. So we might see more of that as the purses go up. I want to
one more. I wanted to ask him the question because we were talking about this before you got on, Ricky. Is there a certain amount of money? Because he came up with a scenario where, you know, USDGC last hole, you have a putt from 75 feet, let's say, to tie. But if you miss the putt, you could lose $200,000. Is there any situation where you would ever lay that up? Like tie, go to a playoff, or are you running that putt, or are you thinking about the 200 grand and are you laying it up? Because I told him I don't think there's an amount of money that I could lay a putt up like that for, if I could tie for a major championship.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, like you said, that also depends on the player and the person where they're at in their career. Like you said, if that's that 20th place guy that has a great weekend and finally got himself in contention, he's going to make some life-changing money. That player might lay that putt up. But if you're already established, you've got some titles, you got some money, that's a whole different mindset. You know, yeah, it sucks that you're going to, if you're looking back, you're like, oh, I lost out on $200,000, but I also gave myself a chance to add a title. As everybody knows, there's no price you can put on a title at the end of your career. Yep. So I think that, like what you said, Brody, that's the biggest thing is where a player's at in their career is going to make that decision swayed one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not even talking about, we haven't gotten to the point of where like tour cards are that could be a whole nother thing of where it's like, hey, if I lay up and just secure second place, I get my tour card for another year. Like that could be a whole different other element down the road. All right, I want to shift gears a little bit. Announcement came out this week that Discmania now has joined House of Discs. Pulled a little Terry Miller there. Shout out to Terry. No, that was not on purpose. Shout out to Terry Miller. But they now join. They now join Latitude 64, Dynamic, West Side, and Castaplast. So they've got like a little crew going right now. The question I have, Ricky, is do you have any information on what that looks like on your end now? Does being in this big kind of company that owns all these, does that change anything with your contract? Does anything look different?
Yeah, so for me as a player, it's really not that much different. A lot of the stuff's on the back end. Who's running things, who's making decisions. The new but he's the CEO of Dynamic Disc. He's worked for Dickies and grown Dickies from, back in the early 2000s. I noticed you didn't say Dynamic Discs. You just said Dynamic.
I was staying away from all those.
Slide.
Now you're saying Dickies. Now we're going off the rails, man. Oh, we got to bring it back. Here we go. All right. Serious. It's a serious podcast.
Yeah. But anyways, David Hine, he's taken over for Rusco, he was basically the CEO before this new David guy, who he has a big background of growing Dickies from like 20 million to like 500 million. So the big corporate stuff. So
keep going.
So he's kind of taken over a lot, playing a big role, and a couple of the Latitude guys have taken a step back and let a lot of these new people from the House of Discs make a lot more business decisions. And I'm sorry.
You gotta stop laughing, please.
So nothing's changing. You're good to go.
Yeah, everything's good to go. We're free and clear. As a player, there's nothing changing.
All right, everything's moving forward. All those people that are concerned with Ricky, he's fine. He's gonna be doing just fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, we got to get out of that segment, Yuli, as fast as we possibly can.
Let me go. Because
go, please take it over.
I want to talk about Ricky the player for a little bit, this is one of the most fascinating stats I've heard in a very long time. With a 3-stroke lead, you have won 16 straight Elite Series, and now 17 straight. I called it when a bunch of people called it live and on Jomez, the greatest front runner of all time. What is it about being in the lead that makes you so dominant?
Well, I think that it's for me. I play with a lot of emotion, and I feel like that can be good and bad. When I'm in contention, I'm on lead card with a chance to win or winning. I thrive off of the making a big shot and using that momentum to spiral me into another birdie, another long putt. And so I just really feed off of that. Like I tell people, it's the biggest, closest thing we can come to home field advantage in disc golf is making that big putt,
Sure.
Getting all excited and having the crowd cheer for you. So I think that's a big part of it and why I succeed. And I thrive under those situations. Both ways, because if I'm not in contention, of course I'm a competitor. I want to try to get back in contention, but I don't have those cheers. I don't have the eruption of the crowd for that 6 shot that can then parlay into another one and another one.
Sure.
So that's a huge thing for me, and I think that's why I feel like that stat is reflects that.
Yeah, that's the craziest stat ever, dude.
And I never even realized that the stat.
Yeah.
I just kind of always known that I've been an emotional player, and I wear the emotions on my sleeve when I make and I think the other thing is I can sense a big turning point in a tournament when you need to make that shot. And I think that's important. Obviously, you could say every shot in the final round is important, but there's always those handful of shots in a round, whether it's a putt or an up shot, to keep that momentum of that round going, to save the par, or a sick drive. So there really, you could really pick out 2 or 3 moments, and it could even be on like hole 1. That big putt sparked me, and so that helped a lot. And then 16. That putt was so
unbelievable.
Big. Yeah, it was 1 stroke to Kyle birdied that hole, so I was still stayed up 2. So going up 2, staying up 2, going into 17 and 18 with all the out of bounds and all the variance, I knew that was a huge putt. If you put a percentage on it, it would go from like 60% to like a 90% chance to win, just because. Yeah, you know how tournaments play out. You know how the last 2 holes can go, and so having that extra stroke is absolutely massive. And so I felt that, and that's when I just let it out.
What is that?
The way that I was going to say real quick, the way that 18 was playing, that did not look like a hole that you wanted to have to make a birdie on down the stretch.
It's a tough hole, and you have to take on so much aggression, like what you were saying. Kyle could have very easily. He got up and down for the bogey after his first shot went out of bounds. But I mean, he could have thrown a couple more out of bounds, and then all of a sudden Calvin posted a 9 under, could have caught you or something. Obviously, that's not how it played out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that hole has a lot going on with the out of bounds, and it just makes you think. And it's a lot of people were taking big numbers on it. I know in the FPO people took some big numbers. Wheezy took a 9, I think, to miss the finals by 1. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it just it's tricky.
It can get you.
What is the difference then? Like, walk us through the feelings of, okay, so you obviously have momentum when you have the lead, but does it affect you when you don't necessarily have a chance for the win? Is it tougher to get that momentum and to, post a really good round?
Yeah, it's harder. It's a little harder to get that spark. And I think that you can compare it to a round. Let's say you come out with a round, just it doesn't have to be necessarily a certain time in the tournament, but you come out and you get a par, first 3 holes you par, and you're trying to birdie those holes. Well, on hole 4, you throw a bad shot or something, and you throw some crazy throw in to get that momentum and sparks you. And so for me, when I'm playing bad, I really look for that shot, and it may not necessarily be the flashiest shot, but it's something that you're really proud of that shot, and you can really build off of that for the future, for the rest of the round. And so I always tell it to people is take those little wins when you're not playing great and really let that snowball in a positive way. And so for me, that's kind of what I try to do when I'm not having the crowd erupt, is like take that 30-foot straddle putt that you've got your first birdie, like sweet, like that's awesome. I get it, you didn't win the tournament with that putt, but that changed the momentum of how your outlook of the round. I finally got over that hump of I got the birdie, and then I can play a little bit more confident after that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to let you go enjoy. It looks like it's a wonderful day in Arizona there in that backyard. Some nice little trees you got there, nice little pool. So we do appreciate you taking the time. Real quick, though, if you want to kind of let people know about your Sockibomb Foundation, I think you guys are doing some great things over there. If you want to let people know how they can kind of support that and help that.
Yeah, so we got the website, the SockibombFoundation.org. And this year, keep it short and sweet, we're giving away 50 discs in a basket to 50 different schools in 50 different states. So we try to pick a school in a different state, and we donated a package. I went to a couple. I think I went to one in Vermont, and I went to a couple others and did like a clinic there. So that's the first initiative, and that's been really cool, really, to see everyone sending their posts and videos of the kids throwing their first putt. It's kind of a catch on words because a lot of times it's the kid's first putt at recess or gym class or whatever. So that was, I'm very proud of that. And then we're doing a pro-am here in Phoenix. So we're going to be doing a fundraiser here. A good time of year to get everyone out, nice weather, and donate some money, or raise some money. But yeah, we're going to be posting more about that in the next month or so. So be on the lookout for that.
That's great, man. That's awesome to hear. And yeah, like I said, congratulations, man, on another back-to-back tour championship. And thanks for stopping by, man. We appreciate it. Have a great off season, man.
I will. Thank you. You too, Brody. And we'll see you guys soon.
All right,
See you,
take
bud.
it easy. All
See
right,
you.
Ricky Wysocki, ladies and gentlemen.